Hey, it's Kelly with citracycles.ca. I'm excited to share with you the details of R&M's MultiTinker compact cargo e-bike. I'm going to start with a quick overview of why you'd want a compact cargo e-bike. I'll show how the German-made MultiTinker focuses on safety, comfort, reliability, and convenience. And I'll give a brief overview of why you'd want a bike made by R&M. This video will be quite long, so feel free to skip around. After the overview, I'll dive into all the details and then I'll do a ride test. You can find the complete details, including the specs, pricing in Canada, on our website at citracycles.ca. There you'll find our contact info, so you can reach out to us with any questions you have if you're in Canada. If you're not in Canada, you'll want to contact your local R&M dealer. You can also set up an appointment on our website to come try it yourself here at our store in Chemainus on beautiful Vancouver Island. Or if you want us to ship one to you almost fully assembled anywhere in Canada, we can do that as well. Now, I should mention I'm not getting paid for this video, so I'm going to share my own personal opinions and experiences. Of course, Citracycles is the way I provide for my family, but if the MultiTinker isn't the best e-bike for you, we've got lots of other great e-bikes and great video reviews on our website. Now, my kids always tell me I'm supposed to tell you about the bell so you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, but I always get more focused on the bell on the bike. Let's talk about why you would want a MultiTinker. So the MultiTinker, it's, well, a bit of an unusual name, let's say, for such a fantastic bike. The original Tinker is R&M's compact bike with 20-inch wheels. It's been an incredibly popular bike as it handles and rides exceptionally well, unlike so many other bikes with these 20-inch wheels. So I do have a video review, including a ride test of the original Tinker on our website at citracycles.ca. So the MultiTinker builds on the success of the original Tinker by turning it into an incredibly capable cargo bike that can hold up to 2 kids with up to 65 kilos on the back rack, either in child seats or with the safety bar that you see here, or the passenger kit. You could also bring a lot of gear using their massive 42-liter waterproof bags, your own bags, or crates that go on the top and on the side. Plus, we have this massive cargo rack up front. Now, despite all of this capacity for kids or stuff, it's actually the same length as a regular bike. And it may not look like it, but it really is the same length or shorter than a regular bike. I've lined up R&M's charger for here, and you can see we've got the back wheel and the back of the Tinker lined up at the back here. And at the front, I think the charger is actually slightly longer. You can see the front wheel of the Tinker is a little bit shorter than the front wheel of the charger. So even though it doesn't look like it, it actually is the same length or shorter than a regular bike. It also rides just like a regular bike. In fact, rideability is one of the factors that sets the MultiTinker apart from other bikes in this category. There are lots of cargo e-bikes with 20-inch wheels, but unlike most, the MultiTinker is made in Germany. And the German engineering is part of what makes it incredibly rideable, reliable, and serviceable. So why is that a big deal? Well, unfortunately, a lot of bikes in this category aren't really well designed for their purpose. And so not only when you look at their specs, but when you ride it, you realize that although it's very practical, they don't handle well. Unless you really need a cargo bike, you probably wouldn't choose to ride it just for fun. But the MultiTinker is a bike that I actually would ride even if I didn't need a cargo bike. Take the safety bars off there. It's the same length as a regular bike. It's super fun and enjoyable to ride, very relaxed riding position. And so I would ride it even if I didn't need a cargo bike. And part of that is R&M's engineering with the frame design. It is very practical. It's very low step, which makes it easy to get on and off, and it looks really cool as well. It is also very stable, which is why it handles so well, as they've used reinforced cavities in the down tube here, and they purposely designed the frame to be as minimalistic as possible with a very low center of gravity. The Bosch PowerTube 625 watt-hour battery is in the down tube here, and that allows the weight to be more centered over the front wheel, giving you good grip and traction. So a lot of really clever design elements in the bike. Do have the Bosch Performance Line CX mid-drive here, so we don't have to worry about a throttle. It's not necessary. We want to avoid throttles if we can. A lot of places you're not allowed to ride them, and it's just unsafe. This is going to give you all the power you need right away. There's no delay, so there's no need for a throttle. It's smooth and responsive. It's got plenty of hill power for the hills, and it's never unsafe. Now, safety and reliability is a big deal, especially when dealing with batteries. The entire Bosch system is certified, which means you don't have to worry, and arguably it's really one of the best and most reliable e-bike systems on the market. Now, we love this option of the Enviolo continuously variable transmission here. It means that you can easily shift while you're stopped, which is fantastic, something you can't do on a regular drivetrain. And it also means we have this fantastic Gates carbon fiber belt, so we don't have to worry about doing maintenance. You can just ride. We've got very powerful 4-piston brakes up front with a huge rotor up there as well for increased stopping power, built-in light with a high beam to keep you safe, and of course rear light as well. Very wide, highly puncture-resistant tires with reflective sidewalls. They are 20-inch wheels, of course, which gives us that low center of gravity and makes it really easy to maneuver. In addition to being safe and reliable, the MultiTinker is also very comfortable. We've got this nice low step-through area here, making it really easy to get on and off, and it adjusts really easily to multiple riders. So we do have a quick release on the suspension seat post here that'll allow us to adjust the height for multiple riders, and as we adjust the height, the seat goes further back, which is great. Typically, as we get taller customers, they want to be a little bit further back from the handlebars. Fortunately, the handlebars are both height and angle adjustable, and that's unusual. A lot of times they'll kind of just adjust one or the other. Here we just open up the quick release and we can press the clamp here, and we can lower the handlebars, get them higher or lower wherever we wish, and we can also, it's really hard to do with one hand, I'll show later in the video how to do that. And of course we can also open up the levers on the side here and adjust the angle. So that allows us 3 positions to adjust that. We can get it further away from the further away from the seat, closer to the seat, and in between. So lots of adjustments. So those adjustments mean that it is actually suitable for riders anywhere from 4'7" all the way up to 6'7". It's also obviously very comfortable. We've got that suspension fork I talked about earlier. It's got a through axle, making it very sturdy, and we've got this nice, wide, comfortable tire as well that's going to give you lots of comfort. When I take you out on the ride test, you'll see how incredibly comfortable it is to ride and how well it handles, which is a really important thing when it comes to a cargo bike. And of course, the MultiTinker is really convenient. Included in that price is we've got this front carrier, which is pretty handy. We've got this really cool locking storage bag, and again, that's included in the price, which is pretty cool. I'll show that later in the video. And the sideboards are included as well. For convenience, we also get a frame lock, really easy to access here. It's key to liked, the same key as for the battery, so you just need one key for the whole bike. Put the key in, turn it, push this bar. It's going to put a steel bar through the rear, or through the front wheel here, and that'll prevent somebody from riding the bike away. There's an optional security chain that plugs into there, so you can loop it around something to secure it. But really convenient, makes it easy just to jump on your bike and ride. Now, before I jump into all the details on the bike, and feel free to skip over to the ride test if you wish, I should mention there is more to just buying a Riesenmuller than getting a nice bike made in Germany. You're getting a really great bike that's made by people that are treated well, a company that cares about the environment, sustainability, and community. And later in the video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about R&M. Okay, let's jump into the details of the MultiTinker. I've got the petrol here, but it's also available in white, gray, and curry matte. We have the safety bar on right now, which gives you this really cool padding and a backrest, and then we've got 2 bars here. One is padded for passengers to hang on to, and then a protection bar here. That's the the safety bar. We also have the passenger kit available. Both are going to include the spoke protectors, which is going to protect feet from getting in the spokes there, and of course that seat cushion. The side loaders here are included with the bike. And they also make some pretty awesome cargo bags, massive 42-liter bags that mount on both sides, and the side loader here will actually help support that if you get a lot of weight into the bags. Now with this rack you can put your own regular bags on as well. In terms of safety, we do have Magura 4-piston brakes up front here. They're hydraulic brakes, of course, with a 180mm rotor, so lots of stopping power up front. And in the back, they also use the Magura brakes, and interestingly, that's actually a massive 203mm rotor, so tons of stopping power. That's really important because, of course, you're going to load it up with a lot of gear, or a couple kids, or an adult passenger. You want to be able to safely stop very quickly. With the hydraulic brakes, they are self-adjusting, so as the pads wear, the pistons are going to get closer to the rotor, so you don't have to worry about that. The Magura brakes do have an easy adjustment as well, so you can move them closer or further away from the levers as you wish to, again, just really dial in that comfort. In terms of safety, we do have a nice bright supernova light up front there. It's 550 lumens on the high beam setting, or 160 lux. High beam button is right here, and when you press it, you'll see it turns blue to tell you that the high beam is engaged. We want to avoid using the high beam when you're in traffic because 550 lumens is quite bright. It's nice to have that though for when you're off-road or there's no one around and you need to see. Also a nice bright rear light as well. Now, I would love to see R&M using a brake light. That is just a standard light visible from the side, which is nice, and from the rear. But we could upgrade you to a B&M brake light, for example. Just reach out to us for details on that. Also, in regards to safety, we want to take a look at the tires. It's something sometimes people often overlook when it comes to safety, but these are Schwalbe's Supermoto X. They're a highly puncture-resistant tire, which is great. They've got that reflective sidewall, which we like to see, and it's 2.45 inches wide, so nice and wide. That's important. It helps in terms of stability, gives you lots of traction, control over the bike, and you can run them at fairly low pressure if you wish to make them even more squishy and comfortable. And of course, we've got the suspension fork up there as well for comfort. Now, you can also configure it with knobby tires. These Smart Sam Plus here, also from Schwalbe. These are on my load here. These are a fantastic tire to consider as well. They do give you a lot more aggressive tread pattern, but we still have that reflective sidewall, still highly puncture resistant. So if you're riding on gravel, mud, loose materials, this is really nice to have these, especially when you're cornering, digging in. When you're riding on pavement, though, you're going to mostly be riding on the center here, and that's a continuous bead there. So it's not actually noisy or slow compared to the Supermotos. It's just for a lot of our customers, they like having that extra traction on there for more challenging conditions. So speaking of the tires, it's an interesting discussion to consider the benefits of the 20-inch that are on the MultiTinker. Definitely gets your center of gravity lower, but it's also worth thinking about the 26-inch that are, say, on the MultiCharger, also from Riesenmüller. If you visit our website at citruscycles.ca, there you'll see I've got an in-depth video review and all the specs on the MultiCharger. It's very similar, except that we've got 26-inch tires. That's going to move the center of gravity up a little bit, but it gives you more leg room for your passengers. So if you're riding with adults or older kids, that might be worth considering. And with the bigger tires, you do benefit from the centrifugal forces, which means that as you're going a little bit quicker, you're going to have an easier time staying more balanced, which is kind of interesting because a lot of times we look at the 20-inch as a benefit for that, and it is. The center of gravity is lower, but maybe it's not such a big deal. It's worth trying them both if you have the opportunity, and you can do that in our store here. Just book an appointment on our website at citruscycles.ca. So obviously safety is a big deal, but so is comfort. Otherwise, you're not going to ride it. And so R&M's done some clever things here. I'd mentioned this adjustable height, so we can actually independently adjust the height and the angle. That's a pretty big deal. On a lot of bikes, when you adjust the angle, it's adjusting the height and vice versa. So this you can adjust them independently. We're just going to open up the clamp there. There's a pin here that we're going to press down, and that allows us now to slide, and you can see that I've got a bunch of different holes there that I can line that pin up. If I avoid that hole and do that one, clicks in, which makes it very, very secure. Then I close up the clamp, so we're not worried about that height with the adjustable height it dropping or anything like that. It's incredibly secure. Another cool feature about that is that you can actually open that up. If you push the pin in and turn the bars there, you can actually make them parallel to the bike very easily should you need to store the bike. As I mentioned, we do adjust the angle independently as well, so open up these two levers. Again, safety thing, we want to make sure that it's not going to adjust while you're riding. And not only do you have to open those two levers, but now you're going to slide. You can see there's another pin in there that makes it really secure. So we've kind of got it in the furthest away position. Right now you can see there's quite a bit of a distance there, so if you want to ride in a really sporty, aggressive position, get your seat up, that's going to move you further back, move the handlebars out and down, and that's going to make it very aggressive riding position. But I can just open up the lever here, you can see that retracts the pin, and now I can move the handlebars to the second position here, which is kind of more of a middle upright position. Of course, I'd close up the levers, adjust the height as I wish, and that's going to give us a little bit more of an upright riding position. But if you are a shorter rider, have shorter arms, or you just want to be super relaxed and laid back, again, we're going to pull that pin. That's going to allow us to bring it back into an even more relaxed riding position. And so now you can see we've got the handlebars really, really close. Now, when you're adjusting that, you may need to adjust the display a little bit, for example, because obviously the angle is going to adjust. One of the quick ways of doing that is to loosen these 4 stem clamp bolts here. Roll the bars a little bit. That'll put everything in the right position for you. And when you tighten it back up, you want to go back to 6 to 8 Newton meters. As we continue to talk about comfort, we've got these very comfortable Herman's grips here. They're a nice shape and nice compound material to make sure that your hands are well supported and that you don't get pins and needles like you sometimes can. Another big factor for comfort, of course, is it being a step-through. It makes it really easy to get on and off, especially if you've got kids on the back. You don't want to be throwing your leg over the back and hitting them in the head. Not that I'm speaking from experience. And it's ideal for quick stops when you want to get your feet down quickly. You're not worried about a crossbar and injuring yourself. It makes it really easy to get on and off. I've mentioned that suspension fork a couple of times here. This is a Suntour Mobi Boost, so it has 80 millimeters of travel, which is pretty good for a small wheel like that. And it does have a through axle, so it gives it a lot of stability. Being the Boost standard, it's nice and wide, so there's really no flex in there when you're cornering. Lots of stability and strength. Well, we're up here. Check out how long that front fender is, both up front and at the back with the flap there. So they've really tried to make it so that it's very comfortable, that, if you're riding in poor weather or through mud puddles, you're not going to get to work all dirty. We've got a nice fender on the back here as well. Nice, low mounted, and actually mounted to the frame, so it's not flapping around back there. So I mentioned already the fact that with the seat post angle, as you move the seat post up, it goes further away from the handlebars, which is great for taller riders. Usually they also have longer torso. You want to be a little bit further away from the handlebars, although of course we've got the handlebar adjustments as well. We do have a quick release on here, so it's easy to adjust for multiple riders. And despite the really cool look here, this is actually just a standard seat post clamp. This little piece here that kind of finishes it off isn't part of the clamp. It's a funny thing to mention, but I'm always keeping my eye out for anything that might be difficult to replace in the future. This is just a standard seat post clamp. In fact, the seat post itself is a 34.9, so that's actually one of the bigger seat post sizes. Interestingly, R&M's been doing that for years, and it makes it really sturdy, very robust, and we're starting to see more and more manufacturers in the industry moving towards that wider standard. Now, this is just a regular seat post. If it were me and I were buying a MultiTinker, which I may, it's an awesome bike, I would definitely consider upgrading to a suspension seat post. The Connect would be fantastic. The Thudbuster is something that R&M uses on their other bikes, but you can find all those details on our website, or if you come for a test ride, ask us and you can try it out. That's all at citruscycles.ca. Well, we're talking about the seat post. We can look at the saddle. This is a Selle Royale. It's actually quite comfortable. It's got some good gel in there. It's quite interesting. It's a new product from Selle Royale. It's the base is 100% recycled plastic under there, which is pretty cool. And the cover is apparently 50% from biosourced materials rather than plastic. So they're really concerned about sustainability, and so that even shows itself in the saddle. We've got nice wide pedals, which I really like to see, although generally in the industry we kind of call these tester pedals because they let you test ride the bike, but the manufacturer hasn't really designed them for long-term use because everybody has their own idea of what a pedal should be. I like a wide pedal. I am keen on the fact that there is kind of this grip tape material here to help keep your foot from sliding in wet conditions, and so it'll actually work quite well for you, although this grip tape eventually wears off. So at that point it may be worth considering getting something maybe that has pins to hold your pedal on, or we've got some really nice Shimano pedals in the store here that have kind of pins that are going to hold your foot but without cutting your shins. So I've got lots of details on that in our store as well. You know, it's interesting. I always tell people when they come into the store that you can look at all the specs on a bike and you can read all about it and you can compare them, but one of the biggest things you need to do is to ride it. And so you're welcome to skip over to the ride test where I talk about the fact that they've got a lot of frame rigidity here, which means that it's going to handle well in cornering and in difficult terrain, which is important. So in addition to safety and comfort, we want to talk about convenience. Here's an example of that, this really cool kickstand that is nice and wide. So it's a lot of, gives you lots of stability. You've got kids climbing on and off, but it's also really easy to deploy and release. There is a spring under there, so that makes it easy. We can just basically kind of keep our foot there to keep the kickstand from sliding, and move the bike forward and off it pops. And to deploy it, we simply push it down, pull the bike backwards a little bit, and there we go. You don't have to lift the bike at all. Another aspect of convenience that I discussed earlier is this idea of locking it with the frame lock. We simply put the key in, the same key that we use for the battery, and push this lever. A steel bar is going to go through the front wheel into the other side and prevent the front wheel from turning. That's great for a quick stop somewhere where you don't anticipate somebody coming along with a truck, picking up your bike and putting it in the back. If that's the case, if you're not able to keep your eye on the bike, then you may want this optional security chain that R&M offers. And you'll notice that this chain, it's hardened steel, it doesn't have a lock. It has a plug that plugs into the lock that's already built into your bike. So you just need one key. Again, really convenient. So you're going to wrap that around whatever you're securing it to, a bike rack, and plug that in. So that lock is available separately, but R&M also offers it with this really handy seat back bag. So the lock just goes into there for storage. And although it's very convenient, just keep in mind that if you're a taller rider and we move this seat up, for example, then it can make it a little bit harder. You may find that that bag is colliding, say, with your passengers, or if you're using the passenger kit rather than the safety bars, you also need to fit in a set of handlebars under that bag as well. So if the bag's not going to work out for you, fortunately we've got another option. And this is actually pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. This storage bag actually comes with the bike. It does have a little locking mechanism here. Now, of course, don't put something terribly valuable in there because a knife obviously could cut it open, but it's nice and handy. We can just set a 3-digit combination, lift up there, and that's going to release the zipper tabs here. Again, I'll try to do that with one hand. Sometimes that's harder. There we go. And unzip it. We notice we've got a cover on the zipper there, which is pretty clever. Keeps it nice and dry. So anyways, we open that up, and surprisingly, we've actually got a lot of room in there, a little divider in there, so you could throw tools in there, keys, that lock if you didn't want to put it in the bag. It goes all the way back and behind there, so lots of cool stuff. We've got these little Velcro straps here to keep this from falling down, so it's really very well thought out. Pretty cool to be able to have that to leave maybe anything that you want to have with your bike in there, such as the lock, and then let's just lock back up just like that. Wow, I did it with one hand. So I mentioned the Tinker, the MultiTinker is going to come with a front carrier. This is the optional cargo carrier, so it's massive. It's got a 15 kilo capacity, and you can see why. It's actually mounted to the head tube here rather than to the handlebars. That has a big benefit. That means that when you steer, you'll notice I'm turning the handlebars here, the wheel is turning, but the rack doesn't. That means it's not going to affect the handling of the bike. If you put a heavy load on there and it moved every time you turned, it would make it difficult to control the bike. But because it's mounted to the head tube, it doesn't move. Now, that can cause a little bit of getting used to, because when you're riding the first time, you turn, but your brain doesn't see the wheel turning, so your brain gets freaked out and it turns sharper because it thinks you're not turning, and you may oversteer. So I always just tell people, look where you want to go, you'll be fine, you'll get there, just don't look down at the rack. You get used to it after a ride or two, but it is nice and sturdy with that mount on there. Now, if you prefer, you can just get the standard R&M bag, front carrier, which is going to have a lower capacity, but it does give you this optional bag here. Let me pull the bag off. It is removable, it's just Velcro. It's got a carrying strap, a couple zipper compartments, so it's super, super handy. Let me pull it off, show you what the rack itself looks like. So this is the standard front carrier. It has a 5 kilo capacity without the bag, but of course you can add the bag if you wish. It's quite a clever rack as well. It actually has these little screws underneath that you could use for mounting additional items or securing things, though that bag is pretty handy as well. Now, speaking of carriers, of course, we have the rear carrier. Of course, this bike I have the safety bar installed, but you don't have to have the safety bar. You don't have to have the padding there. You can have just the regular top rack under there. And of course, massive capacity, 65 kilos. So you can put a lot of weight on there. It is nice. We've got 2 rails here. So if you're using child seats or the pads, we can attach that there, and we can still attach bags underneath. As I mentioned, the side loaders do come with the bike, which is pretty clever. So if you are in a situation where you need to bring a passenger and hadn't planned for it, they're still going to have somewhere to put their feet. Or if you really overstuff those bags, it'll support the bags. But it also has a mounting point for a strap, so it's pretty cool. You can actually use it for lashing something maybe long on. Just be careful when you're cornering if it's sticking way out the end. And just in case room for 2 kids wasn't enough, or that's not enough room for gear for you, under the spoke guard here, I don't know if you can see way in there, there's a mounting point, there it is, for a trailer. So normally with a trailer, you are designing it for a 26-inch wheel. Since this is a 20-inch wheel, if your trailer won't mount onto there, you can mount it up higher on the frame. Then it emulates being on a 26-inch wheel. It gets it further back on the bike as well. It's not going to collide with any of the frame or the side loader at the back. Again, German engineering, right? They thought all this through and made sure that the bike's going to be exactly what you're. So R&M is using the Bosch Smart System with their most powerful motor. That's the Bosch Performance Line CX. Gives you 85 Newton meters of torque. Torque is what gets you up the hills, so we've got lots and lots of power for climbing the hills. We love having a mid-drive. It puts the weight in the middle of the bike, low to the ground. It's very smooth and very responsive, especially the Bosch system. So it's got a very sensitive torque sensor. That's important because what it means is as soon as you put pressure on the pedals, it knows you're trying to pedal and it gives you the assistance right away. That means we don't need a throttle, and that's important. We love not having a throttle. There's a lot of places, national parks here in BC, provincial parks, you can't ride e-bikes with a throttle. The reason they're putting throttles on cheaper bikes, typically with a hub motor, though sometimes with some mid-drive motor, is that they don't have a very good torque sensor, or they don't have a torque sensor at all, and so you actually have to have the pedals turning before you get assistance from the motor. Well, that's crazy, because if you've got a really steep hill you're trying to get up, you can't get the pedals turning without the assistance. That's why they put a throttle. But with a Bosch system, that's completely unnecessary, so it's a lot safer without one. You're not going to accidentally knock the throttle, or sometimes they don't have a throttle, but they have a cadence sensor. It doesn't know how hard you're pedaling. With this, it knows exactly how much pressure you're putting on. As soon as you put the pressure, you get the assistance. You put a lot of pressure because you want more support from the motor, you get the more support. You actually just accidentally bump the pedals over a bump, you're not going to get a surge of power throwing you into the trees or oncoming traffic or something like that. So we love the safety, reliability, and the very smoothness of the Bosch system. Speaking of reliability, with the Bosch system, you can pretty much get service at almost every bike shop. Pretty much every bike shop deals with Bosch, so we know that well into the future, should you need a replacement battery from Bosch, you can be able to get that. This isn't a Riesenmuller battery. It's one of the things we love about Bosch is they require manufacturers to use their components. That ability, but it also ensures future availability, and it also means that the entire system is actually certified, so we don't have to worry about battery fires or incompatibility or problems with the chargers. Bosch has got you covered. No worries, it's very safe. Everything's been tested. So as I mentioned, we do have a 625 watt-hour battery. This is a power tube battery. It is removable with a key, so that's nice. You're not having to leave it on the bike. You can take it off to charge it inside, or you can charge it on the bike itself if you wish. There's a charge port right there, and this one's quite clever because it's magnetically mounted. So R&M does give you the option of the Bosch Intuvia 100 display or the Kiox 300 display. They're all going to come with this LED remote here, which is pretty cool, and you can see that you can actually tell the level of assistance from the remote by the change in colors here. So they've got rows of buttons at the bottom here. If I press the up button, you can see it turns green, and it's going to tell me that on the display here that that's on Eco, the lowest level of assistance. I can press the plus again, it turns blue on here, and again blue on the screen to tell me that it's Tour Plus. Tour Plus is a dynamic adaptive mode. One of the cool things about the Bosch smart system is you can download the eBike Flow app, and in fact you could take the kiosks off here and put a smartphone grip on instead. That would let you use your phone instead of the display, which is ideal for navigation and things like that. But even without riding with your phone, the eBike Flow app is going to let you customize the bike. So you can change the settings. You can even change, instead of Tour Plus, regular Tour, or even auto mode. So it'll just automatically adjust for you, which is pretty clever. Or if you're mountain biking, which is probably unlikely with a MultiTinker, there is an EMTB mode as well. And so if I press the up button again here, it turns purple. On the screen it tells me that we've configured that for sport, and red is turbo. So it's handy if you don't have the display mounted, because this is removable. The kiosk is getting power from the bike, and if you take this off, say, and put the smartphone hub on, you can, not the smartphone, it's now called the smartphone grip, you can actually charge your phone either wirelessly or through a cable, which is pretty clever. This is also going to show you your battery level on the LEDs here, and of course it tells us on the screen. So this is the Kiox 300, just color. It's getting power from the bike. When you pair it with your phone, you can actually send directions to the display, so it'll tell you, in 200 meters, turn right. It won't have a map, but it will give you directions. If you need a map, that's where you're going to get the smartphone grip and use your phone for the mapping with the Bosch eBike Flow app. Now the Enviolo 100, I don't have one to show you. That's fairly new. It's going to be black and white. It's actually got its own battery built in because it's not drawing power from the bike, and it's going to just be a little bit more basic in terms of the information that's shown. I mentioned that the kiosk is actually wired to the bike. You can see there's a couple wires, one going to the bike and one going to the remote here. The Enviolo isn't wired to the bike, so if you want to change the Kiox 300 to the smartphone grip, that's super easy. Just take this off, put the smartphone grip on, and it's drawing power from the bike. But if you go with the Enviolo 100 and you want to upgrade to the smartphone grip, it is possible, but we're going to actually have to replace the holder from the Enviolo to one that's providing power and getting that from the bike. So just something to keep in mind. It'll be a little bit more costly to upgrade from the Enviolo 100 to the smartphone grip later on, but it's certainly possible. Whether you go with the Kiox 300, the Enviolo 100, or the smartphone grip, there are a couple buttons up here that are going to let you cycle between the different screens, and a select button that actually, in the case of the Kiox, switches between two alternate screens on each of those screens that you're selecting. So you can see all sorts of information is available to you, including the navigation that I had mentioned. For that, you need to pair it with your phone. But lots of great stats are available to you, and lots of customization options as well. So the Bosch Smart System does have a very intelligent walk mode. When you press and hold the down button here, it's going to say move the bike to activate walk assistance. So within 9 seconds, we just have to move the bike slightly. That'll realize that you're moving, and then it'll assist you by turning the crank arms and giving you power from the motor at a walking speed. We can adjust that for you, but typically it's 4 to 5 kilometers an hour. And it's ideal if you've got a heavy load, a couple kids, or a week's worth of groceries, and you're trying to walk up a steep hill, maybe off the ferry or at a pedestrian area. So as long as you press and hold the minus key, the bike's going to keep moving itself along. You're just going to steer it, and as soon as you release the minus key, the walk mode is going to stop, which is a great safety feature because you don't have to worry about the bike leaving without you. Now, one of the interesting things about Bosch, and we talk about this a fair bit here in the shop when the mechanics and I are test riding bikes, the Bosch system is really very well designed in terms of the software, in terms of its rideability. It's just, there's nothing like it. And they keep refining it and coming up with new ideas. So the walk mode, for example, now has hill assist, which is really cool. So if you're using walk mode and you stop partway up a hill, It's actually going to use the motor to keep you from rolling backwards. So you don't have to grab the brake lever right away to stabilize your bike. If you stop for a moment, the motor's actually going to make sure that you're not sliding backwards, kind of like the hill assist in a car. So it's really clever that they keep adding these features. And as they add features, because it's the smart system, you can download the app and do over-the-air updates. So you're always up to date with the latest options that Bosch offers. Speaking of options that Bosch is offering, later this year we hope to have the Connect module from Bosch that will allow us to add GPS tracking and an alarm system. So once that's available, we'll update our website, and I hope to have a video of that, and that'll be available on our website at citruscycles.ca. So we talked about Bosch, let's talk about the drivetrain. So we do have the touring model available for the MultiTinker. You'll find that on our website, and that's going to have a chain, cassette, and derailleur, so you will have to clean and oil the chain, and it gives you an 11 to 43 tooth cassette at the back. It does use Shimano's Link Glide technology, which means that cassette, chain, and derailleur should last significantly longer than in the past. Shimano really optimized that for e-bikes, making it maybe a little bit heavier, but also heavier duty and longer lasting. Now, if you do want a longer lasting drivetrain with less maintenance adjustments, then of course you can go with the Vario model, which gives us the Gates carbon belt here and an Enviolo continuously variable transmission kind of hidden behind the wheel skirt there. So obviously with no chain, the belt doesn't need to be oiled. It's going to last significantly longer. We've had customers get 20 to 30,000 kilometers out of their belt before they had to change it. So really a lot less maintenance, a lot less cost of ownership. There's nothing to adjust on the Enviolo here. With a traditional drivetrain, you do have to worry about the shifting needs to be adjusted from time to time as things go out of adjustment. You may find if you don't do that, your chain could fall off and things like that. With a belt, we don't have to worry about that at all. So since all of the gears are enclosed in the back there, how does it work? Well, it's really quite clever. Rather than having gears that you click through, it's infinitely variable or continuously variable between the highest and the lowest gear ratio. So you see the little cyclist on the hill here. I just grab this, and if I twist towards me, do you see how it's becoming flatter? That's making it harder to pedal, making it to a harder gear. And when I twist away from me, it becomes steeper. Now it's easier to pedal. There's no clicking, so it's infinitely variable between the highest and the lowest. That means if you are climbing a hill and you shift to your easier gear on a regular drivetrain and it's too easy, and so then you go back to the hard gear, oh, it's too hard, and you wish you had in between. Well, guess what? You have in between because it's infinitely variable. It also means you can shift while you're stopped. So if you're cruising along, you have to stop suddenly, either traffic or the kids need your attention or whatever, it's easy to forget, like, oh no, I have to downshift before I stop. With this, you don't have to worry about that, right? Because on a regular drivetrain, you can't shift while you're stopped. But here, no problem, make it easier to pedal, and off I go. Especially on a cargo bike where maybe you're riding in an urban environment, and you're trying to pay attention to everything that's going on around you. The last thing you want to worry about is gearing, so that's a nice feature to have that Enviolo CVT. Now here's a question we're going to look into on some of the models, such as the Nevo right behind me here. You'll notice that they offer the Enviolo Automatic, which automatically shifts for you. But it requires the addition of that fairly big controller box right at the back there. And I'm not sure that we would actually be able to fit that in the frame, but we can give it a try. So if you're interested in upgrading this to automatic, just reach out to us and we'll take a look at it for you. So reliability is super important to us, especially on a cargo bike. If you're using this as a car replacement, which you easily could, you're getting the kids to school, you're going to work, you're doing what you need to do. The last thing you need to worry about is problems with your bike. And so by using high quality, reliable components, you're not going to run into those kind of problems. As well, we're using standard high quality bike parts that are easily obtainable. It's really important to us that we don't have something that's so proprietary that you can't get it fixed, or that the bike is really difficult to service. And so one of the frame design choices that R&M made with the MultiTinker is they wanted to make it easy for us to be able to go in and replace brake pads and do adjustments. And we can easily do that by removing the wheel skirt. And it seems silly for me to point that out, but we've seen a lot of other bikes in this segment that have come into the shop, and we're just required so much time to be able to get past the frame into the components that need to be adjusted. So it's nice to see a company thinking that through. Okay, so now that I've given you all of the details on the bike, perhaps more than you were looking for, I want to take a moment to talk about why we really like Riesenmuller as a company and the impact of their vision on the world. And then after that, I'm going to head out on a ride test, but of course, feel free to skip over to that if you wish. So here at Citra Cycles, where your bike is made and who is making your bike is important to us. So for example, when you buy an R&M, not only are you buying a bike with great German engineering, but a bike made by people that are treated well. And a bike made by a company that cares about transparency, sustainability, and the community. So R&M issues a transparency report on their practices, and they require transparency from their suppliers. That means you can be assured that everyone has been treated well and fairly. There's no forced labor, child labor, and they have sustainable environmental practices. They have people from over 40 different countries working in their factory. They provide language training on site to immigrants. So they try to source as much of their products from European sources as they can. That helps to reduce emissions. Speaking of emissions, they use green power sources, and they really are truly focused on reducing waste and emissions. They don't just talk about it, they actually do it. So for me, that's important because when I ride a bike, it's more than just a bike. For me, I have a connection with my bike. It's part of me and who I am. And so R&M gets that. And it's comforting knowing that not only is my bike enhancing my life, but the making of it has improved the lives of others and was made in a sustainable way with our children's future in mind. All right, let's head over to the ride test and see how it rides. So I'm doing the ride test today on the MultiTinker Vario with that Enviolo continuously variable transmission. I've got the Bosch system in Tour Plus right now. I really like Tour Plus. It's a dynamic adaptive mode that works really well on a bike like this. And one of the things you notice right away on the MultiTinker is those adjustments mean that it's really easy to just dial in the exact right fit. I like being in an upright, relaxed riding position, so I've got the bars all the way up and kind of in a middle position, and it just makes it very comfortable. Being on the Vario is fantastic because I had to stop quickly there at the stop sign, and I didn't get a chance to downshift ahead of time, so while I'm stopped I can go ahead and shift to an easier gear. And that's something to keep in mind when you're choosing a drivetrain. You know, not only do you get the benefits of the Gates carbon belt, but being able to shift while you're stopped is fantastic. I really like the Tour Plus for starting and stopping. So right there, you know, I was able to shift to an easier gear, put a little bit of pressure on the pedals, and boom, you get the assistance right away. That's something a lot of people ask me about. They're like, oh, well, why doesn't it have a throttle? Well, ideally, if we can avoid bikes with a throttle, that's a really good idea. Really, in the past, they'd put a throttle on a bike because it was hard to get started, but with this Bosch system, you get the power immediately. There's no need for a throttle. If I need to get across an intersection quickly or start on the middle of a hill, no problem. The assistance is there right away. And the Tour Plus especially just highlights that, of course. You could throw it up in turbo if you wish as well. Tour Plus is nice because I can just leave it there and never really have to adjust it. Lots of stopping power on these Magura brakes here, heading down a bit of a hill there. In fact, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the hill just so I can climb it. And I'm going to try to find a few steep climbs in the video just to show you how well this Bosch CX drive works. But you certainly get lots of power from the motor. So very comfortable riding position. The suspension fork's working out really well. I am missing the suspension seat post, so I'm riding with the stock standard rigid seat post. That's definitely something I would recommend changing to, you know, you could use a thud buster or the Connect. Something I'm looking into as well would be a suspension dropper post. We're trying to get that in. That would be pretty clever. What we like about dropper posts is you press a lever and the seat goes down. So when I came to that stop there at the stop sign, with the dropper post, I wouldn't have to worry about getting off the seat. You can just drop it and stand flat-footed. All right, so I'm going to pop her up into turbo here. There we go. So with the Bosch system on turbo, you are going to get a bit of noise from the motor. It's less noise in the lower levels of assistance, but the CX motor is a little bit noisier than their other motors. However, it's worth it. When you have a cargo bike, you're likely going to have a heavy load, whether it be kids or a dog or stuff, and no one's ever regretted having the higher torque. You do get used to the noise fairly quickly. I don't even notice it anymore. Often the wind in my ears is louder than the motor. Don't need turbo anymore. Now I could have left it in Tour Plus the whole time and just pedaled hard. Tour Plus, if you pedal hard, you're basically going to get the same assistance as turbo, but on turbo you don't have to pedal as hard, so it's a lot of fun. There's a barrier in the trail here, and this is where having the MultiTinker being the same length as a regular bike is fantastic. Some spring flowers there on the left. Because, with my load, sometimes I ride through there on my way to work, and I usually have to stop and kind of maneuver it around because it is quite a bit longer. And I do love my load, but having something that's, shorter like the MultiTinker has a lot of benefits. So got some broken pavement here and some potholes, and that suspension fork is working out really well. But I definitely would put a suspension C-post on. It's going to help smooth things out even more, especially if you're in an upright riding position where most of your weight is actually on the saddle instead of the handlebars. Of course, we've got the really comfortable grips as well, which is important. It's interesting with the Enviolo here. When I kind of pay attention to it, I realize that I actually shift a fair bit. And it's true with the conventional drivetrain as well. I like kind of being in the right gear ratio. And I really noticed that on a hill with a variable grade, like some of the hills I've been on so far, you'll probably notice me shifting a fair bit. And it's really nice being able to just make those minor adjustments. It's interesting, I'm exceeding the 32 kilometer an hour cutoff speed, and I didn't notice it all other than looking down at the speedometer, because it's very smooth in terms of the transition between the assistance being on and off, because of course 32 kilometers an hour is the maximum here in Canada. Once you're exceeding that, you don't notice it because it fades out very subtly, but also there really isn't any resistance when that motor is off. So if you turn it off completely, there's really not much resistance at all. Rides just like a regular bike. So a bit of a climb here, put it back up onto turbo. Again, I could just leave it on Tour Plus. I'll put it back to Tour Plus and pedal hard. I'm still getting the same amount of power. Just have to pedal a little bit harder. I actually really enjoy the Tour Plus. It's a lot of fun because it's very responsive. So if I pedal hard, I get lots of power. Pedal lighter, I get less power. It's very, very responsive. But for some of our customers, they don't want that responsivity. They want kind of a consistent amount of power, whether they're pedaling hard or not, and that's where the auto comes in. It's nice having all those options with the Bosch Smart system. I'm in a very upright, relaxed riding position, which is important not just from a comfort point of view, but I also really like it because I'm very visible. It's easy to see me in traffic, but also I get a good view of traffic, and that's important. Safety, of course, is very important. All right, so let's try out the brakes here on some loose gravel and pine needles. Lots of stopping power. It's really interesting. Let me try that again. Really going to grab the front brake this time. So lots of stopping power from that front brake because the weight is so well distributed, and we've got that power tube battery kind of putting some weight on the front wheel. I don't lose it at all. It doesn't steer. It doesn't slide. Lots and lots of traction on that. So really nice to have the power from the brakes. The MultiTinker is one of those bikes that can be so many things to so many different people. In addition to the versatility, how you ride it, so you can put it in a very upright, relaxed riding position, kind of just cruise along. Or you can drop the bars, be very more aggressive, ride very sportily. It handles that really, really well as well. So it's nice that however you want to ride it, or if you've got multiple people riding it, it'll handle all that. So I'm coming to an interesting section in the trail here. Got a tree in the middle of it, and then a corner, and then a climb, and then a curb. So it's definitely very challenging. We're going to put it up into turbo, choose an easy gear ratio in the Enviolo, and it's really nice having a bike that handles so safely and so well that I don't have to worry about it. I'm riding over this curb. Suspension fork, of course, handled it really well, but also I don't have to worry about a derailleur. Something to keep in mind when you have 20-inch wheels is, that derailleur can be hanging really low to the ground. So if you're going off curbs, watch that you don't bang it. The Enviolo, I didn't have that problem, of course. And sometimes we're concerned about what we call the attack angle with the 20-inch wheel. Can we roll over obstacles? And certainly in that case, no problem rolling over it, and no worries about bottoming it out on anything. It's another example of why we love having the Enviolo. On the touring model or any bike with a chain cassette and derailleur, going down that hill, I would have wanted to be changing gears to an easier gear to climb the other side, which, by the way, is super easy right now in turbo. With the Enviolo, so then you end up braking and pedaling, because with a conventional drivetrain, you have to pedal to change the gears. With the Enviolo, we don't have to worry about that. We can change while we're coasting like I'm doing now. Some rough gravel on the trail there. These nice wide tires handled it really well. When we get into that really coarse stuff that you often see, say on logging roads or things like that, it's nice having the wider tire so that you're not worried about losing traction, especially, or control, especially if you've got a couple kids along with you. Safety is so important. So heading up a bit of a hill here, I'm gonna stop part way up here, just to show you, so here it gets pretty steep here. Let me stop right here and just show you with the CX motor on torque, I don't need a pedal, the CX motor on turbo, there we go. It has a lot of torque. And as soon as I put pressure on the pedals, boom, starts crawling up the hill, no problem. No need for throttle, lots of power. And again, even if you have a heavy load, that CX motor is gonna come in handy. So yeah, it's a little bit noisier than, say, the performance line, but that extra torque is definitely worth it. Some more gravel and potholes and puddles and broken pavement and big bump there, and just handles it so well. Corner sharply on loose material, and again, there's just no worries with those nice wide tires. Gives you lots of control. Let's get some speed up going down this hill, see how well the bike handles at higher speeds. It's always important with a step through like this. You want to make sure you don't have any speed wobble, frame flex. There we go. So exceeded 40, 42, and no problem with the handling. I lightly took my hands off the handlebars, which of course you shouldn't do, but don't worry, I'm a trained professional. I had my hands close to it, just in case, and it tracked really well. So don't ride your bike down hills without your hands on the handlebars, but it's nice to know that the frame is very sturdy and you're not going to run into problems. Okay, I'll switch camera angles here. Another narrow section there, no problem getting through it. Again, the Enviolo is quite handy for stopping and starting. Really all this gravel and corners, it's just no problem at all, lots of stability. So I broke the mount on my selfie stick, so I'm doing something which I wouldn't recommend. That's riding with one hand and the other hand holding the stick. Another tricky section of the trail here. Get through, and some blackberry thorns here, and a loose gravel and a hill, and still handling it all with one hand, no problem. The bike handles really, really well. Here's some of that kind of coarse gravel, and again, it's nice having these nice wide tires. And you know, you may not actually plan on ever riding material like that, but it's nice knowing that if you need to, you can. Because sometimes, you know, the way you want to go maybe there may be construction or maybe barricaded, and you may end up having to go on stuff like that. And of course, you could walk the bike. We do have walk mode, which is quite clever. But it is nice knowing you have a bike that can handle whatever you need to throw at it. This actually would make a pretty good touring bike as well. You can bring a lot of gear, of course, and because it's not, you know, any bigger than a regular bike, you could still take it on the train or whatever if you need to. But it's also such a comfortable riding position. All-day rides aren't going to be a problem, and you get a great view of the scenery. So it's a really good option to consider. So if you're looking for a compact cargo e-bike that is reliable, comfortable, safe, a lot of fun to ride, then the MultiTinker is certainly worth checking out. If you haven't done so already, you might want to check out our video review of the multi-charger as well. And it's also worth considering the front loaders as well, such as the load, the packster, or the transporter. You can find the details on all of those on our website at citruscycles.ca. All right, so I've enlisted my adult son to help me test this out. We'll do a little ride test with a passenger on the back. So my kids are used to riding cargo bikes. They've been riding an assortment of them over the last few years, although my son's usually not riding cargo bikes with me anymore. We do, though, enjoy riding tandems like the Pinot and the Bambuck. But the MultiTinker here is handling really well. You really, I mean, you'd notice that you've got weight in the back, you've got a passenger there, but it really doesn't adversely affect the handling. It is handling really, really well. Of course, that Bosch CX motor gives you lots of torque, so even when you have some additional weight on the back there, and with the Enviolo here for stopping, it's nice to be able to downshift after you stop. Lots of power from the motor to get going from a standstill, and of course the step through is brilliant when you're stopping with you have a passenger on the back. Let's try heading up a hill now. Lots of stopping power going down the hill, which is important. I'm always surprised to see companies releasing cargo bikes like this and not putting really good high quality 4-piston brakes on it, because you really do want to be confident in that stopping power. You can hear the Bosch motor working a little bit there because I've got it in turbo, but you know, we're managing 24 kilometers an hour. It's funny because it's like, hey, he's not pedaling back there, but it's not a tandem, he can pedal. So now we've got a bit of a climb, probably anywhere from probably 15 or 16% grade. Not even in the easiest gear ratio there with the Enviolo, managing 16, 17 kilometers an hour. No problem. How are things back there?
Perfect.
Awesome. It's kind of nice not having to pedal, eh? You know, and this isn't the smoothest pavement here. We've got some bumps. I imagine it's a little bit bumpier back there. Probably what I would do is maybe reduce the tire pressure a little bit to give the passenger a smoother ride. Oh, they've got a seat cushion back there, so that's not too bad. Doing lots of corners here at speed and, you know, just generally riding like a maniac, which you shouldn't do if you've got kids on the back. But it's a good test for the bike, just to make sure, you know, it's going to handle in challenging conditions or challenging terrain. And yeah, it's performing really, really well. Really happy with it. Some more bumps here. The nice thing about the Tinker being the same size as a regular bike is it makes it really easy in back alleys and congested areas to get through. So you can find all the details, including the specs and pricing here in Canada, on our website at citruscycles.ca.